Accepted.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this talk about RCS Business Messaging. Thank you for coming. So the agenda today, we're going to do four things. I'm going to have a slide deck that tells you all about RCS and RBM and what they are and what the difference is and how they work. We're going to do a little walkthrough through the APIs that we have, which are publicly available APIs. And then my favorite part is going to be the demo. This is going to be a live demo, which historically always goes smoothly, and we'll see if we can replicate that today. And we're going to have a Q&A in the end. This is just a bit about me and a very brief summary of my life and career so far. So I was born in Ukraine. I moved to US a long time ago. I've been in Google for about 15 years now, and I've been working on RBM for about 1.5, getting close to 2 years. And this is the very important slide. We are hiring in Krakow right now. We have multiple open positions for developers. So if you're interested, or you know someone who's interested in working for Google Krakow, please stop by our booth and sign up. There's a form we have for you to fill out. We have swag, all the fun stuff. So please come to the booth and sign up. Now let's talk about RBM. What is RBM and what problem is it trying to solve? The problem it's trying to solve is that the brands, various companies and businesses need to contact their users with the information that is relevant to the user. And the contacts need to be timely, but not overwhelming. So what is this picture here? Well, I was trying to get a picture of a person who's stuck at the airport because they missed the plane because they did not get the boarding notification in time. And I asked Gemini to generate such an image for me, but Gemini said, sorry, I don't generate people right now. So I thought, okay, but you can generate animals, right? So I asked Gemini to generate the best animal, guinea pig. And instead of a person, we have a guinea pig here, but this guinea pig is very sad because he missed the plane because he did not get notification in time. Ironically, this actually happened to me 2 days ago. I almost missed my flight to Krakow because I did not get notification in time. Unfortunately, the airline was not using RBM. And so I missed the notification and almost missed my plane. So this guinea pig was me 2 days ago. Anyway, let's talk about these acronyms. So RCS stands for Rich Communication Services, and RBM stands for RCS Business Messages. So the letter R stands for two things at the same time, but in the end of the day, it stands for the word rich, and I think that's good. If your product has the word rich in it, I think that's a good start. You're off to a good path. So RBM is a special case of RCS messaging. This is the business-to-person interactions as opposed to person-to-person interactions. This is a brief history of SMS and then RCS, which basically replaces SMS. As you can see, SMS started in '92 with the first message that said Merry Christmas, and continued kind of the same for many, many years until the RCS standard was developed, adopted, and available to Android users by default. And in the last, let's say, about 5 years, RCS went from very low usage to 1 billion daily users. So that is a huge leap in usage. That is actually, I think, very impressive. And this is just another announcement we had about we reached 1 billion users. So let's go back to SMS. What is SMS like? How do businesses use SMS? They send messages that look kind of like this, and I'm still getting a lot of those messages in the US. And you know, this is not very attractive. It's pretty boring, not interactive. It's not measurable. They send the message, they don't know if it arrived, they don't know if the user looked at it. There's no metrics. It's very basic. It's the 1992 technology. And people don't like getting these messages. They don't trust them. And these messages do not inspire confidence. Can it be better? Yes, it can be better. On the left, you see a SMS message that I showed you before, and on the right, you see an RCS and actually RBM message. So in what way is RCS better? It is better in so many ways, every possible way. It is much more visually, it looks a lot better visually. It contains rich media. It is branded. So instead of coming from a phone number, your message comes from a branded entity that looks like your bank or looks like a company and has additional information you can look up about that company. The sender gets delivery receipts. They get read receipts, so they know whether the message was read. The receiver can see a typing notification, so even if the message has not arrived yet, they can see that the other party is typing. There's an add to wallet feature. There's just so much more you can do with RCS. Here is an example, kind of a fake workflow of an RBM message. As you can see, the message not only has text, but it comes with formatting, it comes with suggested replies that you can easily tap, and as a result, you don't have to type anything. You just tap on the reply and you're done. And on the other side, the business can engage with the conversation, in a conversation with the user. And we also see that people are much more likely to purchase and otherwise interact with the business when they are presented with this kind of rich content as opposed to just plain SMS. If you're still not convinced, there's even more examples here of things that can be done with RCS. Well, the subtle point of the last few slides is that RCS is better than SMS. I realize it was not easy to miss, but that is the main theme of those slides. Now, how does RBM work? RBM works via this virtual entities called agents. So the brands or partners create these agents. They're also known as chatbots. And these agents are the ones that send the messages to the user. And the user replies to those agents. As a result, the partners get back the user's reply, and they can then respond in kind. So they can have the full conversation between the user and the partner via those agents. As I mentioned before, agents are not phone numbers. They are chatbots. They have a lot of branding and privacy policy and contact information, and just a lot of things that phone numbers don't have. And they're also more trusted. They're also verified, either by Google or by a carrier or both. So they're subject to acceptable use policies. There are repercussions for violating them. And there's just a lot of vetting that goes on before an agent can actually send message. So as a result of that, the RBM messages are a lot safer than SMS messages, where anyone can basically, with a phone number, can send a message to anyone. And they're even safer than RCS messages because of all this vetting that goes on. So what is RBM exactly? If you were to join the team, what would you be working on as part of the RBM team? There are multiple components that are targeted at different the types of partners and different parties. We have both APIs and consoles. Some of them are targeted towards partners that create the agents. So we have consoles where you can create the agent, update it, and launch it. And we also have an API surface that does the same thing. I'm actually going to demo that part, so you'll see it live. We also have partner-facing APIs, which allow the partners to actually send the messages and events, and perform a few other operations related to sending the messages. The partners can also receive the replies via webhooks that they register, and these replies are then sent from the user to Google Cloud, to Google Infrastructure, to Google Cloud PubSub, and there's an RBM servers that sit in between and orchestrate that. We also have carrier-facing consoles and APIs. So RBM works with carriers, and as I mentioned before, carrier approval is a very important aspect of launching an agent. You cannot really launch an agent without the carriers approving your agent. So we have both consoles and APIs that the carriers can use to approve or reject agents or terminate them if they're live. We also, of course, there's the Google Messages app that comes pre-installed with every Android phone. And this, well, not every, but most of them. And this app is where the user interacts with RBM. And there are RBM-specific portions of the app that our team is responsible for, and we are responsible for maintaining, improving, and otherwise looking after those. There are more parts to RBM as well, but the ones I listed are the bulk of it. This is a high-level architecture of RBM. Obviously, I can't go into a lot of detail, but you can see the broad strokes here. You can see that there's an agent. The agent sends the messages or otherwise interacts probably through the messaging API that's on the right. And then the message goes through RBM servers. So that's that second from the bottom box is the green boxes in it are RBM. Then the message goes through some other shared Google infrastructure, and it arrives at the client, which is either the Google Messages client, or in this case, Samsung client, Samsung Messages client, and hopefully there will be more clients in the future. So let me talk a little bit about why this is a hard problem and why it's an interesting problem to work on as a developer. There are multiple reasons for that. So number one, as I mentioned before, it's a very large-scale product. There are many, many millions of messages that go out every day to users. So the scale is very large. And all the challenges that come with large scale, of course, we have to deal with. It is also a global product. It is available in countries all over the world, in Asia, in Europe, in South America, and so on. And different countries have different laws. They have different regulations. They have different carriers. And the carriers have different relationships with each other and with the user. They have different requirements. And even the user behavior varies from country to country. In some countries, the users are more sensitive to promotional content. In other countries, less so. We also have a lot of, it's an ecosystem product. So there are a lot of parties involved in it. There are carriers, there are the agent developer partners, there are the end users. And we want to make sure that they're all happy and they all get the best experience possible. And this is hard because sometimes these things don't always align, and we have to figure out ways to serve everybody the best we can. And another reason is bad actors. Now, despite all the vetting and measures that we have, there are still people out there that are trying to spam, that are trying to scam people, phishing, malware, fraud, all kinds of bad activity. We don't have a lot of it because of all the vetting, but they do occasionally happen, and so we have to make sure we're vigilant and we maintain the protections that we need in order to protect the users and the carriers as well from this kind of activity. All right, so we are pretty much done with the slide deck, and the next thing I want to do is go through APIs that we offer. Not all of them; it will take too long, but I'm going to go through like the more interesting ones. So the most interesting API, of course, is the API that sends the message. In order to send the message, you send the HTTP request. It's kind of like looks kind of like this, and it has 4 parts to it. One is, of course, the phone number. This is where the phone number in the standard E164 format will go, and this is the phone number of the user who will get the message. Another thing you have to pass as a developer when you send a message is a unique message ID. This message ID has to be globally unique, and it shows up in various contexts like reports and notifications and things like that. So whenever we need to reference the message that was sent, we use this message ID. You also need to pass the agent ID, of course, so that we know which agent is being used. The same cloud account can be used for multiple agents. So the same set of credentials can be used to create multiple agents. So when you send a message, we have to obviously know what agent the message belongs to. But the most interesting part of the request is, of course, the body of the request, which is where all the message contents live. And if we go through that, we can actually see the richness of the available functionality. So, of course, you can send just a plain text message, but that's boring. So let's look at some other things you can send. You can upload files, and then this could be, for example, images or other kind of files, and then you can include them in the message. I'm actually going to demo that in a little bit later. You can send suggestions. So suggestions are can be two things. They can be suggested replies, which are basically these chips that the user can click on, and the response goes back to the partner. So there's the text that shows up to the user, and then there's the metadata around this chip that also goes back to the partner. The user doesn't see this part, but you as a developer would see it. The more interesting type of suggestions are the suggested actions. And this is definitely where you get into the area where it's very different from SMS. It integrates directly with the Android client features. And as an agent, you can prompt the user to do, for example, dial a phone, or you can show them a map. You can prompt them to add a calendar event. You can have an open URL. And this open URL, even though it looks kind of simple, it actually can do a lot. For example, this open URL, when used in conjunction with Google Wallet API, can be used to allow the user to add the thing you sent to them, for example, a boarding pass or a ticket, add it to Wallet. And we actually have an example documentation of how it's done. And I'm not going to go through all this documentation, but in the end of the day, the user gets some button that looks like this, and they can add the thing you send them to the wallet. And the user can also share their locations. So these are all definitely things you cannot do with SMS. Oops. In addition to that, you can also send rich cards, and the rich cards can also be standalone cards, or they can be a carousel, which is multiple cards at once that show up as kind of a carousel the user can scroll through and look at the different ones. And again, every rich card has like dimensions as well as contents, which can have its own suggestions, as well as media, which again can be an image or video or other kind of media. There's more, of course, but we have limited time. So I'm gonna end on the Create Message API and just quickly go through a few more. Another thing you can do with RCS, which you can't really do with SMS, is you can actually revoke a message. So even after you send the message, if the user hasn't received it yet, you can actually take it back. And maybe, for example, you send the message and you realize that the user hasn't received it for too long, and then you fall back to a different mode of communication, as an example use case. And you know whether the user received it, because when the user receives it, you get delivery receipts. You can also send events to the user. There's a couple of types of events. It's a similar API to send message, but the body is different and a lot simpler. So you can actually send the user an event of two types. And the most interesting one is the type in event. So even if the user sends you a message, maybe you're still processing their request, you can send a type in notification so that the user knows that you're processing it. And this is an RCS feature, which is also available in RBM. You can also send a read receipt to the user so the user can see in the app that the message has been received by the agent. You can do both as well. In addition to that, we have other APIs which allow you to actually find out, even before you send the message to the user, whether the user is going to be reachable. The user is reachable if, first of all, they have RCS enabled. RCS comes by default these days, but there's still people using old phones who don't have it enabled by default. Users can also disable it if they want. And so not every user is RCS enabled. Additionally, as I said before, carriers have to approve the launch. So if the user's phone number belongs to a carrier which has not approved the launch, then the user is not reachable. So for example, if you're launching with two carriers, T-Mobile and Orange, and you've launched with Orange but not with T-Mobile, Orange users will be reachable as long as they have RCS enabled, but T-Mobile users will not be reachable. So we have this kind of API where you just pass a single phone number, but we also have API where it's like a batch API, where you can pass multiple phone numbers and get the response as well. There are other cool things here, but I think in terms of API workflow, this is enough for now. As I mentioned before, we also have APIs for the agents to use for creating and managing the agents, so the partners to use for creating and managing agents, and for carriers to approve or reject agents from launch. I'm not going to show those APIs, but know that they do exist. Instead, I'm going to use the consoles and pretty much everything I do in the consoles can be done through the API as well. Okay, so now we're done with the deep, kind of not too deep API walkthrough. And it is time for demo, which is my favorite part. So during this demo, I'm going to be playing multiple roles. In some cases, and most of the time, I'm going to be the partner who is like developing the agent. But there will be times where I have to play a little bit different role and be the carrier in order to approve the agent. And there's maybe a little bit where I have to be Google and verify the agent. And of course, I'm also the user because I have my test phone here. And that phone is going to receive messages. And you will see what happens on the phone. I hope you see it. Let's just make sure. So you see my phone, and everything that happens on the phone you'll see on the screen. But before we get to that, let's create an agent. So this is the console that is used for creating agents. So I'm going to create an RBM agent. I'm going to choose which partner I am representing. Just in this case, I'm part of 2 different partners. I'm going to choose this one. I'm also going to choose a brand. So oftentimes partners work with multiple brands. And so the same partner can be developing different agents for different brands. So here I'm going to choose one of the brands. And I'm going to put in the name. Let's say Krakow demo agent. I'm going to pick which region it's hosted in. I'm going to pick a billing category. I'm not going to go into that here, but it's not very relevant to the demo. And I'm also going to pick a use case. So there are 3 kinds of use cases. There are promotional agents, which send primarily promotional content to people. For example, they have a new sale or some new feature or something like that they want to inform the users about. We have transactional agents, which send information in the context of some existing transaction with the user. For example, this is where the airlines that send the user boarding passes or any kind of flight notifications would fit in. Or if you bought something online and you want the commerce site will send you shipping notifications. Things like that are considered transactional. And then, of course, there's OTPs, which probably most of you know what they are. They're the short numeric codes that are usually used to reset passwords and confirm identity. One point I would like to make is, even for promotional agents, the goal here is not that the agents just spam users. We are not we're not interested in spam. The users are supposed to have opted into this service somehow. And when the agent is onboarded, they have to explain how the user opted in and explain this entire flow. So we'll go through that as well. But I just wanted to make this point clear here earlier, that these are not meant to be spam. So I'm going to make this a promotional agent and then create the agent. So now I have my new agent. It still has a lot of information that needs to be filled out. But the very important feature of the agent is the agent ID, which, as you can see, we in order to make it globally unique, we add some characters to it. And this is going to be my agent ID. And it is very important to save that, as I'm going to need it in multiple contexts. So I'm going to save it here. And then I'm going to go back here. So now let's fill out the agent information. There's going to be a lot of information to fill out. I'm not going to obviously go fill out anything real. I'm just going to put in some fake simple things. This is an agent that does something. And then there's a few UX elements you can choose. You can choose a color, for example, for the agent. You can choose a banner image and a logo. So let's do that. Since I am from Ukraine originally, I'm going to take the Ukrainian flag and I'm going to make that my banner. And I'm going to also select a small logo and pick Ukraine again. You cannot have too many Ukrainian flags. And you can see already on the right here how the agent will look to the user. Now I'm going to fill out some more information. And again, I'm just going to put in some kind of dumb information here. This is my test phone number. Don't call it. I'm not going to pick up. I don't use it. I'm only using it for this demo. I'm going to put in some kind of website. And I'm going to put some kind of email. And this is where privacy policy in terms of service go. Again, I'm going to put in some kind of like Google URL. But in reality, you know, this will be real URLs that go to real privacy policy. And they would actually show up, all this shows up here. And the privacy policy in terms of service, this is where these buttons would go, for example. So now I filled out some information. There's more to do in order to launch the agent, but at least we have some basics in. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a webhook integration. This webhook is owned by the partner, and this is where they would receive notifications about, let's say, the user replying to their message. So for this webhook, I'm going to use this nice tool called PipeDream. And I already kind of pre-configured this URL. And I'm going to use it here. I'm going to generate a token and verify. There's something that goes on in the back end. There's some verification request is sent to this webhook with a secret code. And then the server has to respond with a 200 OK response and the same secret code. And that way we know that the connection is working. So now my webhook is established and I can receive notifications. So what am I going to do next? One thing I can do at this point already is start testing my agent. So the way this works is if I own the phone number, I can opt my phone number in as my test phone. So let me do that. And so I'm going to take the phone number, add it here. And then what happens is a notification is sent to the phone. Here, and it's asking me whether I want to be a tester for this agent. This notification does not come from the agent. The agent is not live. It comes from this other admin entity that we have. And the user can choose whether to be a tester or decline. So the user opts into this. If they don't know who this is from, they can decline, and they will not be contacted at least until the launch happens. But in this case, I'm going to click Make Me a Tester. This is already using the suggestion feature, by the way. And I'm now a tester, and theoretically, messages can be sent to me. So, for example, I can send a message, and the message will arrive. This is just a few kind of templates, but using the API, I can send any kind of message already. However, instead of this, I'm going to go through the full launch process. So I'm going to remove this for now, and I'm going to continue with verification. So the next step is the verification by the brand. For example, let's say Pepsi wants to create an agent, and they reach out to some company, and the company says, yes, I'm going to create an agent for you. How do we know that this company actually has a relationship with Pepsi? They could theoretically be anyone. They could be pretending to be Pepsi and sending their own stuff. So this is where we would say, this actually triggers an email to the brand that asks the brand to confirm that they actually have a relationship with this agent. So I'm just going to go through this quickly. Put in some information here. And do this verification. Now that this is populated, there's one more step I need to do. And this step is actually where I'm going to be Google. And I'm going to review all this information and verify that, yes, this is reviewed and this is acceptable. So this part involves some internal Google tools. So I'm going to disconnect the screen just for 1 minute and perform this verification. Okay. Okay, this is now done. I'm going to reconnect the screen. Hopefully this worked. Okay. So the agent is now verified. And I can proceed to the last step, which is requesting carrier launch. So again, as I said before, carriers are involved in this process, and they need to get a lot of information in order to approve or reject the agent. So I'm going to fill out one more questionnaire that gives the carriers the information that they need. They are the target audience of this questionnaire. So again, here I'm going to fill out some information. And there's a few questions about this is where we ask how the opt-in is acquired. How does the user opt into this experience? And I'm just going to put something. We obtain the opt-in via whatever, something. They also have to explain what actions trigger the messages to the user. And what kind of interactions they will have. Again, I'm not going to put in anything real here. And they also have to explain how the stop is processed. So when the user sends the word stop to the agent, they are required to no longer contact the user. They're allowed one more message to confirm that they received the stop and say, yes, we got sorry to see you go, whatever. And after that, they cannot contact the user anymore. So this is where the agent will, the partner will explain how they do this. So, and then there's a few more things I have to fill out. There's basically how does the carrier view the entire experience, like the video, the screenshots, things like that. They want to review what it looks like from the user's point of view. Again, I don't have any real screenshots here, so I'll just put something. And I'm now done with the questionnaire. And now I'm ready to launch. So I'm going to, for this, I'm going to use a small carrier in the US called Google Fi. This is a carrier which my phone actually is on, and the carrier that I actually have access to, and it can approve launches. So I'm going to, in this long list of carriers, in this long list of carriers, I'm going to select Google Fi and launch it. Actually request launch. So now I have this launch in a pending state, and my agent is still not live. So now I'm going to switch hats again, and I'm going to be the carrier. So we have another tool. This tool is targeted towards the carrier. It looks kind of similar, but it is a different tool that serves a different purpose. And my agent now shows up in this tool, and as the carrier, I can review all the information that was submitted, the whole questionnaire, everything I wrote shows up here. And once I'm satisfied that this is okay, I'm going to approve the launch. And now the agent is launched. And they can see on their side as well that the agent is launched. So now we're going to finally do something even more fun and use the API and actually send messages and respond to the messages and show how that part works. So I'm going to connect it here to my desktop at Google, and I'm going to send my first message using this agent. Now, before I do that, I need to set an environment variable so that my scripts know what agent to use. So I'm going to go here and say export agent ID equals this. So that's done. And now I'm going to make this call. So this is using the APIs that I showed you before. We generate a random message ID. We specify the agent ID, the phone number, and we also specify a few suggestions and so on. So you'll see what it looks like very quickly. And now if I go to my phone, if you look at the bottom part of it, this is the message that I sent. And it's asking me how the weather is. There's a couple of suggested replies and one suggested action where you can see like a small map of Krakow. So now what happens if I reply? So I'm going to say it's sunny. And at this point, the partner needs to receive notification that the user clicked on Sunny. So this is where I'm going to go once again to Pipedream and look at the latest notification, and then look inside the body. As you can probably guess, this is the response. As you can probably guess, this is base64 encoded. So I'm going to copy the value and paste it here. And now you can see that all the information that the partner needs is in the notification. They have the phone number, the timestamp, the postback data, what the user clicked on, and what the agent was. So they have the full picture of the notification, of the user action. Now, if I go back, and instead of clicking on Sunny, I'm going to look at the map. This is an action as well. And this also triggers a notification. Go. So once again, I'm going to copy the value and paste it here. And you can see it, it's a similar structure, but it's a little different, and it tells me that the map was clicked. And it's a type of action, and basically, again, tells me what happened. And if, for example, I had multiple maps for some reason, I would maybe have different postback data associated with different maps, and then I would be able to tell which map was clicked. Okay, so now let's do something a little more interesting, and we're going to upload a file. Actually, before we do that, let me show another small thing. This is the typing event that I talked about earlier. This is the request to send a typing event. It's similar, but much simpler than the previous one. It's the body is basically this. And so if I call this, and then I have to quickly go to the phone, not quickly enough. Let me do it one more time. You can see on the bottom here, there's a typing indicator that shows that the typing is going on. So that's what these events look like. Okay, so now let's upload a file. So I found a picture of Krakow online on Wikipedia. I have this URL of the image, and I'm going to upload it to Google first, and then I'm going to get an ID back, and I'll be able to use this ID to reference the file. So I'm going to upload the file. This is not something the user would. Oh, sorry. Actually, I did the wrong one. First, I upload the file. This is not something the user would see. This is just between Google and the agent. But I get back this identifier. And I'm going to also export as an environment variable. And now I can call send message with file, which looks like this. And you can see that I'm referenced in the file here via the file ID variable. So when I call this, I got a rich card with my file that was uploaded to my phone. That concludes the demo. We have about 10 minutes for questions. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand. Yes? Data volume limits. There is some rate limited. Yes, you cannot send like a million messages a minute. There is some reasonable rate limiting as well. In some parts of the world, for some types of agents, we have some additional limiting as well in terms of how many messages you can send to the same phone number. But in general, the limits are not, they're reasonable, and we have not had problems with them. Any other questions? Yes. Standard day as a developer or as a Google developer working on this product? Okay. Yeah. So as you know, most software, of course, it depends on your job function, whether you're a developer or someone else. Assuming you're a developer, it's not that different from any other Google product, to be honest. As a developer, you usually have some feature or that you're working on, or maybe fixing a bug. What you usually do is you write some code. If it's a feature, you probably write a design document first, get it reviewed by people, make sure that it looks good and you're on the right path and you don't like do something that you shouldn't be doing. Once the design is approved, you can write code. You can create a change list, and then you can send it for review to your teammates or potentially other people who need to see it. And they will, hopefully they may have some comments that you work on, and then once they're satisfied that it looks good, they will approve it and you submit it. And then of course there's like testing process as well. Usually when you write code, you need to also include tests with it. We have a test-driven development, so usually when you submit a change, it comes with the tests already. And the tests are continuously running, and if they fail, then you have to look into it and fix. For RBM specifically? Yeah, I think I had a slide about this. I think these are the main challenges that we face. Obviously, it depends what kind of feature you're working on, what kind of flow you're working on. Obviously, dealing with scale is always hard. Things that work in low scale will break at high scale. And you need to make sure that your code is efficient, that it doesn't use too many resources. Basically it's scalable. Then of course you have to make sure that it doesn't, maybe, it's a good experience for some party, but it breaks the experience for someone else. So you want to make sure that doesn't happen. And so, we have a very robust engineering process developed over like 20 years that Google has existed, where we work with, we have requirements document, followed by design document, followed by implementation, followed by some more process, and usually a gradual rollout. You don't just, from 0 to 100, you don't just launch it to everyone at once. Usually you launch it to a small number of people, make sure it's working, make sure you're not seeing any unexpected problems, and then you gradually ramp it up. So as a developer, most of your time is spent coding, reviewing other people's code, writing design docs, writing tests, and meetings and things like that. And depending on the level you are, you may have more coding and fewer meetings, or you may have less coding and more meetings, depending on how senior you are and whether you're managing people and things like that. It depends on the specific feature you're working on. For some features, yes, scale is the biggest issue. For other features, scale may not be an issue. For example, the tools I showed, like with the carriers approve agent, for example, that's not something that happens at a large scale. There's sort of a limited number of agents, and we don't have like 1 million agents that need to be approved in a day, right? So scale is much lower there, and in that context, you're dealing with different problems. Usability maybe, or breakages, or privacy, or things like that. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes. When you say accept or reject, do you mean like they don't have RCS enabled, or you mean they say it's a spam? Okay, so there's different things they can do when they receive a message that they don't want. Let me show you. So when you receive a message you don't want, you can just ignore it and just not read it. And we have the statistics. I'm not gonna disclose them, unfortunately. When you join the team, though, I will be happy to tell you so much more about statistics and infrastructure. I cannot say. I cannot give you statistics. And as you can imagine, it varies a lot from one agent to another, from country to country, from use case to use case. It varies a lot. If we average it out, it's kind of a meaningless statistics anyway. So you have to look at it for specific slices of population. You have to look at this kind of agent for this country at a minimum, and potentially also look at carrier and other things. So just a general statistic is like averages everything out is not that meaningful. But when you get an OTP, you're gonna read it, right? That's probably gonna be a near 100%, right? Promotional messages, maybe you have lower rate, of course. Yes. Yeah, not fight. I won't use the word fight back, but what they should do instead. When the carrier rejects an agent, there's a space for them to leave comments and explain why they're rejecting the agent, and the agent can then, the partner can then fix the problems that the carrier complained about and resubmit again. So rejection is not necessarily permanent. There's sometimes some back and forth that goes on before the agent is approved. And even after an agent is approved, if either Google or carrier notices that the agent is doing something bad, the agent can always be terminated. So even being approved is not a final state. They can always be terminated. Carriers have, some information. What information they have is I can't really go into. But when people contact the carrier and complain that this agent is spamming me, for example, just users call their carrier and say, why am I getting this? That is definitely a signal that the carrier has. And they have if they get a lot of these complaints, they can suspend the agent. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. One more thing I wanted to mention is Google is, there's a Google booth that I encourage all of you to come to and sign up. And as I said before, we are hiring. We have multiple positions open in Krakow. We also have a women's breakfast tomorrow morning. So especially if you're a woman interested potentially in joining Google, it's going to be at what time? 8:30 a.m. Between 8:30 and 10 in this building downstairs tomorrow. So please come. And there'll be food and swag and all the cool stuff that Google is known for. All right. If there's no more questions, thank you very much for coming.